of removal of the Snake River dams because they are basically obsolete fish killers and they're costing us money. And we brought along Jim Waddell, who's a retired Army Corps of Engineer, who's really the expert on why this can be done and why it could be done quickly. And we do have to act quickly. We're running out of reproductive animals in this population. So thank you all for your interest. I hope I don't have to read too many of these obituaries. I'm sure there will be a few more. And I know that I could list the ones, and we have it on the press package that we've examined, that we know what killed them. So Jim, if you could say a few words.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Yes, Ken mentioned Lower Snake Dams, and yes, I work for the Army Corps of Engineers. One of my assignments was the Deputy District Engineer in Walla Walla, and that was about 16 years ago when we were in the throes of wrapping up the $33 million feasibility study to look at breaching these dams or spending more money on trying to preserve them by hanging additional hardware and benefits, or additional hardware on the dams to facilitate salmon passage. Unfortunately, at the time, a poor decision was made to keep the dams. In spite of an environmental impact statement written at the time, it said the best thing to do was to breach the dams. And actually, short of that, it was best to do nothing. But instead, the Corps of Engineers chose to embark on an expensive hardware upgrade of those 4 dams, and to date has spent nearly $1 billion of your tax money and the ratepayers' money of the Pacific Northwest trying to figure out a better way to get salmon back and forth over a dam. The upshot of that $1 billion investment is absolutely no improvement in salmon survival over those dams, and that goes for juveniles and adults. And so that was an entire waste of money. But maybe worst of all was we wasted 17 years. And our biologist back then clearly said that we had about 17 years before wild salmon genetics ran out. That means no more wild salmon. We're about a year away from that, and that is why the urgency is so important now. I mean, why it's such an issue now. We cannot keep postponing this. We cannot do more studies. We cannot spend another 5 years responding to a federal judge to come up with another study. We already have one that clearly says what the government must do, and it must be done immediately. These dams are simple to breach. They don't cost anywhere near the billions of dollars that Bonneville Power has been telling you, or the Corps of Engineers. They can be breached very easily. They have an earthen berm. It's easy to go through that. And we could start as this December or January and still get this thing started this year. The other great myth about these dams is that only Congress can authorize breaching, and that's not true, folks. The Corps of Engineers, the executive branch of the government, has a fiduciary responsibility to correct dams or any piece of infrastructure that's failing economically or endangering species for which there is no other alternative but to decommission the project. That's clearly the case on both counts for these dams. The economics of these dams are pitiful. Every dollar that you invest with your tax money, you get 15 cents back. 15 cents on the dollar, that's your return on investment. They're also literally costing more to operate now these days than the power generated from those dams. And this power, by the way, has already been replaced. The Pacific Northwest is running a surplus of power, and this just represents a small fraction of a loss to that surplus power. Not to mention that we've got wind and now solar coming online that already replaces the power of these dams. So that's the point I want to make, that from an engineering, economic, policy standpoint, there's no reason these dams can't be breached, and the only thing stopping it is political will. The Corps of Engineers is in the Northwest is not going to do it. In Washington, D.C., they're just basically waiting for Senator Murray or Governor Inslee or somebody like that, or President Obama, to tell them to do it. That's just the way the Corps works. Okay, thanks, Ken.